there, welcome to the channel. My name is James, and here at 20th and 21st Movies, we are about all things cinema. Alright, I wanted to come on here for a few minutes to share my thoughts on the 1975 film from Belgian director Chantal Akerman, Jeanne Dielman, 23, Quai du 1080 Bruxelles. This film has an edition in the Criterion Collection. It's spine number 484, and it was recently voted the greatest film of all time by the Sight and Sound poll that came out just last week as of the time I'm recording this video. So this is the poll that comes out every 10 years. It started in 1952, and based on a poll of over 1,600 film experts from around the world, where they were asked, what are your top 10 favorite films? Based on the compilation of all those results, Jeanne Dielman, 23, Quai du 1080 Bruxelles was voted the greatest film of all time, surpassing famous films such as Vertigo and Citizen Kane, which has historically held that top position. Now that new number one is this amazing film from Chantal Akerman, so I wanted to come on here and spend a few minutes and share my thoughts on this edition from Criterion. So let me take a quick moment to read the back of the Criterion case. It says, a singular work in film history, Chantal Akerman's Jeanne Dielman, 23, Quai du 1080 Bruxelles, meticulously details with a sense of impending doom the daily routine of a middle-aged widow whose chores include making the beds, cooking dinner for her son, and turning the occasional trick. In its enormous spareness, Akerman's film seems simple, but it encompasses an entire world. Whether seen as an exacting character study or as one of cinema's most hypnotic and complete depictions of space and time, Jeanne Dielman is an astonishing, compelling movie experiment, one that has been analyzed and argued over for decades. So let's jump into my thoughts on this amazing film. Let's go. All right, Jeanne Dielman, 23, Quai du 1080 Bruxelles, is the 1975 film from Belgian director Chantal Akerman, and it has been voted the number one greatest film of all time by the Sight and Sound poll. So when I heard that last week, I definitely had to come on here and share my thoughts on this title. Now, this is a title I've had in my collection for a number of years. I've seen like the first half of it, and when I saw that poll come out last week, I definitely had to come on here and, first of all, finish watching this movie. So I watched it all over again, went through the special features, and want to just come on here and share my thoughts on this title. And first and foremost, I will say I do believe that this is an absolutely incredible film. It is a film that masters the presentation of simplicity. It shows everyday life. It shows the mundane nature of everyday life, and it shows the humanity of the simplicity of daily activities. So it covers 3 days in the life of a widowed homemaker named Jeanne Dielman, played by Delphine Seyrig in this film. And she plays her role masterfully and is masterfully directed by Chantal Akerman in this film. As she goes throughout her daily routines of cooking, cleaning, bathing, having dinner with her son, and of course turning the trick for Johns who come to her apartment regularly and pay her, and that's part of how she supports her family. And so it shows her daily activities mostly in her apartment over a 3-day period, but then she's also out and about in the streets of Brussels, running different errands, shopping for groceries, trying to get a missing button on a blouse. So she's at the cleaners, talking to a couple of cleaners about options for getting this button replaced and whether or not she should get all the buttons replaced or try to find that one missing button. So it's all of the daily routine that we're seeing over a 3-day period. And what's really interesting about that is you see a progression in her routine. It starts out as very perfect and precise and exacting, but then over the course of the film, you sort of see cracks in the armor of that perfection, cracks in the armor of that order over the period of time, and the effect that that has on her character. You see these subtle changes over time, and it leads to some things happening in this film that's a little surprising. So I won't spoil that. It is definitely an experience I recommend people to watch if you are into avant-garde cinema, if you're into art cinema. It's definitely an experience I would recommend. This film comes in at 3 hours and 21 minutes, so it's 201 minutes. It is a fairly long film, but it is well worth it in the sense of seeing the progression of this character over time as she moves through this world. And as you see what is presented as simple, mundane activities, it is a little bit beguiling in its presentation because it comes across as simple and it seems like nothing is happening, but there's a lot that's happening within the frame of every scene in Jeanne Dielman 23 Quai du Commerce, Bruxelles. That is one of the interesting aspects of this film in the way that this film was shot, is within each scene, you're looking at a fixed frame. The camera never moves. You're going from scene to scene, and it just shows each scene perfectly framed up, whether you're in her apartment, in one room versus the other, or outside on a city street. You see a fixed camera and characters moving within that space, in and out of the frame. Or you see Jeanne Dielman in a cafe, or at the laundry, or at the dry cleaners. You see a fixed frame and characters within the frame moving in and out of the frame. And it is beautifully framed up. And I do love the fact that the cinematographer is in the special features. So I think this movie is fascinating in its presentation of everyday life and the progression of Jeanne Dielman's routine over time. It definitely is a film that makes you think, what did I just see? Really leaves you wondering about Jeanne Dielman as a character. So I think that's part of the lasting power of this film, is what it leaves you thinking about after the film is over and the credits roll. It makes you wonder about everything you saw over that 3 hour and 21 minute runtime. You're thinking, this film is not quite as simple as it appears on the surface. There's a lot of depth underneath. And what you're seeing on the surface is just the tip of the iceberg of everything else going on underneath. And that's the fascinating part of this film. So I definitely recommend it as a film. And in terms of, do I believe it should be at the top of the list? I would say the answer to that is very simple. Yes, no, and maybe. It all depends on your opinion. And this is based on the poll of over 1,600 people, the Sight and Sound poll, and every person has a different list. You know, I know if I were submitting a list, Jeanne Dielman would not be on the top 10. It would be in my top 100, but it wouldn't be in my top 10. But based upon everybody's poll entries, Jeanne Dielman has come out as number 1, and I definitely respect that selection. And I'm also happy it came in at number 1 because it means that this film, Jeanne Dielman, 23 Quai du Commerce, Bruxelles, came out in 1975. It's been out for 47 years. Over the next 5 years, based upon it being number 1 now in the Sight and Sound poll, this film will be viewed by more people over the next 5 years than it has been viewed in its first 47 years since it came out in 1975. So I think that is the cool thing about it, in addition to this being the first film from a woman director, Chantal Akerman, to top the list. So I am really happy to see that. Now, as a film, comes recommended. In terms of this Criterion Collection edition, how do I feel about it? This is a really nice edition from Criterion. So starting with the video and audio presentation, you get a 2K digital restoration. When you read on the inside about the restoration, you'll see that it is a 2K digital restoration from a 4K scan of the original camera negative. And it looks really nice on this Blu-ray. You see all the different scenes in this film, a lot of nice detail of the interior of her apartment, the exterior scenes on the streets or exterior locations where she's in a cafe or some other interior location exterior to her apartment. But you see a lot of different scenes in this film, whether it's scenes in her apartment or outside of her apartment, and there's a lot of nice detail in those scenes, and it just looks really, really nice. And I really appreciated the high definition picture. The monaural soundtrack comes across really well. This is a dialogue, this is a film that, interestingly enough, does not feature a ton of dialogue. It shows Jeanne Dielman going about her routine fairly quietly, whether it's her chores, cooking, cleaning in her house, taking a bath, walking about the streets. Oftentimes you're not hearing a lot of dialogue, but when you do hear dialogue, it comes across very nice, very clear, and the ambient sounds in the soundscape inside her apartment, the sounds in the kitchen, the sounds exterior to her apartment that come inside her apartment, beautifully rendered on this monaural soundtrack. So from a video and audio standpoint, nice presentation. And the supplements on this edition from the Criterion Collection are also very, very nice. You see the interior of the case. Of course, this is the exterior on the outside. The disc, of course, shows Jeanne Dielman there doing her daily routine. And of course, this is Jeanne Dielman waiting on one of her visitors to be paid, which is part of the narrative of this film. Of course, you have the cast. Jeanne Dielman's played by Delphine Seyrig. Sylvain Dielman was played by her son, played by Jean Decourte. And then you have the first client, second client, and third client played by Henri Storic, Jacques Dorneau-Vadarose, and Yves Bacal. Those are the five main characters. Credits, of course, are Chantal Akerman was the director. She wrote and directed this film at the age of 25. 25 years old, directed the film that is now considered the greatest film of all time by Sight and Sound. So that is awesome. Her cinematographer was Babette Mangold. Producers Evelyn Paul and Corinne Janart, and a whole host of other people who contributed to this amazing film. A Matter of Time, Yvonne Margulies, is a great essay that's included in here that talks about the film and Chantal Akerman's influences, which is super cool. And in here you have a nice series of pictures of Jeanne Dielman peeling potatoes, which is cool. And it talks about the transfer and the restoration, which is great. But some of the features that I will point out to you here that I thought were very good is you do have Babette Mangolte, who was the cinematographer. She talks about her experiences working with Chantal Akerman, who was very young at the time, and how she sort of mentored her in the filmmaking process and how she was impressed with her filmmaking vision at such a young age. That was great. We have an interview with Chantal Akerman herself talking about what influenced her as a filmmaker and her passion for creating stories and the types of stories she likes to tell. You also have an interview that's very interesting with Chantal Akerman off camera interviewing her mother. Her mother was named Natalia, and her mother, Natalia Akerman, was very important to Chantal Akerman and a very important part of her life. You also have a nice interview with one of the French television programs where it has Chantal Akerman and actress Delphine Seyrig, who played Jeanne Dielman in this film, They talk about the filmmaking process. And then there's a nice documentary on this disc that shows on set the process of making this movie. It's in black and white, and it shows Chantal Akerman, Delphine Seyrig, and the mostly female crew that was involved in making this absolutely amazing film. So great special features on this disc. This is, oh, about to fall over. This is a really nice addition from the Criterion Collection. It comes in a Spine 484, and I have to say, it definitely comes highly recommended as a piece of art cinema. I think it's an important piece of work in the world of cinema, and I am glad that I finally watched this film in its entirety. And it is officially my episode 11 of Backlog Treasures. So this is another film that I've checked off my backlog list, and I was inspired to do so by the new Sight and Sound poll. But let me know in the comments section below, what do you think about this film? Have you seen it? What do you think about any other films from Chantal Akerman? I think this was her second feature film. There is another film that's on here, a short film that shows sort of the inspiration or the early work that eventually became this film, Jeanne Dielman. So that's another feature that's on here. But let me know what other films from Chantal Akerman you've seen. There's a nice clip set from Criterion, a DVD set of some other works from Chantal Akerman, so check that out. But let me know what other films you've seen from her, and let me know what other films you are looking to pick up this holiday season and what films you're looking to pick up on physical media in 2023. Let me know that in the comments section below, and as always, thanks for watching, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time at the movies. Peace.